The theme for today is that God is an all-knowing God. This is part 3 from Psalm 139, verses 5 and 6. Verse 5, "You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me." Verse 6, "Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it." You know, I want to thank you for watching me as I shared part 1 and 2, and now in part 3, we're continuing to talk about God being omniscient and all-knowing. I want you to notice in verse 5 that God says, "I have hedged you behind and before." That word hedge, that's the same idea as people who have homes, whether it's rich homes or modest homes. Instead of having a fence, they want something that's live as their border. So they plant bushes along the borders and they grow up and make beautiful hedges. And the house is in the center. And so these hedges look like the fence around the home. So in the city of Paris, the King of France lived near there in the palace called Versailles. It was a huge palace where the king lived, and in the back of the palace behind there was a beautiful water fountain with many rows of hedges. And those bushes had been planted to become hedges, and they were perfectly manicured. And it looked like a maze, as a person could walk in there and not know which way to go next. So that's the concept, as God puts hedges in our life to protect us. Well, you might say, well, God is controlling us. No, God is protecting you because you're precious to Him. So it's just like a hedge around a house protects the home. So God puts protections around you to watch you and protect you because you're precious to Him. The next part of the verse talks about His hand is upon me. Well, that's very encouraging, because in the Bible, when it talks about a hand being on a person, that's the idea of giving a blessing. When God's hand is upon you, God is showing that He knows about you and you're still precious to Him and He wants to bless you. That's very important, that you surrender to Him. God knows everything about me. Well, that should not make us feel embarrassed, but as God knows us, He wants to bless us. Now in verse number 6, the psalmist wrote the explanation of how we respond after knowing all the things from verse 1 through 5. After knowing all of this, of God's goodness, He understands us, He protects us, and then it's like, oh God, your knowledge is too wonderful. It's way up there. There's no way that I can compare with the amazing knowledge that you have. You don't know enough. God knows everything about you. And that's a good thing. That should inspire you to know that God thinks about you.